Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to be reviewing for our upcoming math assessment on Friday. So I want to do a little review of everything we've learned up until this point in math. And what better way to review but then to take a look at our math notebook. Now, I hope you've been keeping diligent notes. Our math notebook is a really important resource as we move through the school year. It is a place to put all of your mathematical thinking down on paper and something that you can refer back to often. It's one way that you can study, and it's one way that you can go back and look at your notes to make sure that you have everything. So I'm just flipping through my notebook. Hopefully you have most of the pages that I have. I think I'm going to be collecting these notebooks probably towards the end of the marking period and giving you a grade on them. I've been noticing kind of in school that some of my friends haven't been keeping such meticulous notes, and I really want you to get into the good habit of making sure your notebook is complete. So from here on out, I would really like if you made sure that your notes were taken down, everything that I do, either in my class, in my live lessons, or on the video lessons. Please make sure that you're doing the same in your notebook. So one of the first things that you should have in your notebook is a place value chart. And the place value chart is a good one to refer back to because it reminds us of the different places that exist in our number system. So we know that a digit's value, or how much it's worth, is dependent on where it is located in that place value chart. So this 9 here is in the hundred thousands place, right? This 9 is worth 900,000. Likewise, this 7 here is sitting in the tens place. This 7 isn't just any old 7. This is actually a 70, right? It's worth 70 because it's in the tens place. 7 tens is 70. We also learned that any group of 3 digits, it's separated by those commas, is called a period. We also talked about how we only say the word and when we have a decimal in the number. So don't fall into the trap of reading a number and saying like 471, because that's not correct. We learned that when we're reading a long number like this, we would kind of chunk it by periods. So anytime you had a comma, you can kind of cover up everything and just read the number as is. So this would be 5. And then when you see the comma, you would say the place value that digit appears in. So million. So 5,902,471 and 386 thousandths. And we talked about how the decimals, something you're going to be learning a lot more about later in the year and also in 5th grade. Okay. Another thing that we talked about, and you should have in your notes, let's see. Actually, I want to grab a piece of paper really quickly. Stay right where you are, folks. Do that in the pause. Okay, I'm back. Another thing that we talked about this year is that numbers can have different forms and different ways of writing them. So we talked about standard form just being like writing a number the regular old way. It's the easiest way to write a number, just writing it. We talked about word form or number names, and when we're talking about word form, that's the one that hurts our hands, where you're writing it out in actual words. The trick to word form is to say the number out loud first and then write what you say. And then finally, we talked about expanded form. And expanded form is the form where we're using lots of zeros and those plus signs, right? You're kind of pulling that number apart and looking at each place value on its own. In our notes, we also talked about rounding. We said this little poem here, 4 or less, let it rest, 5 or more, add 1 more. So you should have something like this in your notebook. You can always pause this video and copy it down if you're missing anything. We did a little rounding notes one day where we talked about the rules of rounding. We also came back to that yesterday. But if we're rounding to the nearest 10, first we need to find the place that we're rounding to, look to the right, say our little poem, 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 or less, give it a rest. And we learned that we want that target digit is the one that we're doing it to. So either adding 1 or leaving it alone. Some more rounding. We should have some kind of an addition refresher page in here where we talked about the importance of lining up your numbers, starting in the ones column. Some subtraction notes that we should have in our notebook. All right. We always want to start in a ones column, more on the top, no need to stop, numbers the same, zeros the game, and more on the floor, go next door and get 10 more. And that's all about regrouping there. We're going to be talking a lot more about subtraction in the coming weeks. Then we started our place value topic, and you should have your purple word cards. One way to keep them all in a nice, neat spot is to have a little pocket into your notebook. And we are having a quiz on these words. It's going to be on Wednesday, let's see, if today's the 5th, 6th, 10, 7, that should be. So you could fill that in. And then we started talking about place value relationships. We learned that anytime you have the exact same digit side by side in a number, the digit to the left is always 10 times greater than the digit to the right. So this 5 has a value of 50. It's 10 times greater than the value of this 5, which is just a plain old 5, right? Same thing with these 2s. The 2 that's to the left in the 100,000s place is 10 times greater than the 2 that is in our 10,000s place. We also kind of went a little bit further to say that if numbers are separated by a digit in the middle, that the value would be 100 times greater. This 4 here in the hundreds column is 100 times greater than the 4 in the ones column. And if they're separated by 2 little guys in the middle, right, our value is 1,000 times greater. We spoke about comparing whole numbers. We know that the greater than symbol, right, the mouth always eats the bigger number, right? The greater than symbol points away from a greater number, whereas the less than symbol, I like to remember this because it looks like an L for less than, right? The less than symbol would always point toward a lesser number, and then this is our equal to sign. And when we're comparing numbers, we always want to start at the left and at the greatest place value and compare. These 2s are the same, so we go on. These 9s are the same, so we move on. The 8s are the same. Move on. The 4s are the same. Can't compare there. Finally, we have a 3 and an 8. What's bigger? An 8. Therefore, this number right here is going to be greater than the other number. And then yesterday, we talked about rounding whole numbers. We reminded ourselves that the first thing we need to do is ask, what place am I rounding to? You would find that place, which happens to be your target digit, and look to the right. Then you're going to say your poem, 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 or less, give it a rest. All of the digits after your target digit would then turn into 0. Okay, and we had an example here. You look to the right, it's a 9, so you add 1 more to the 2, making it 3,000. We did a few more examples, and then I think that concluded our notes. I have a few more pages, but it's just because I do them multiple times. So your notebook, boys and girls, should have, the same pages that my notebook does. And you can always go back to this video and use that and pause if you need to. So today we're going to be taking a place value quiz, and I wanted to review because the place value quiz that you're going to be taking today is so similar to our actual test. In fact, it's the same, like Savas realized I just pulled and customized questions. There may even be 1 or 2 questions that are almost exactly the same as on the test. So if you do well on the place value quiz today, chances are you're going to do just fine on the test on Friday. So let's take a look at some of these questions. I'm not going to do all of them because you're going to be doing them on your own in a few minutes, but I do want you to be familiar with a few things. The first thing is some of these questions have multiple parts, like part A, part B, part C. And trust me, there's even some with like part F. So you want to make sure that you scroll all the way down. So please make sure that you do that. Because if you don't scroll down, you're going to be missing parts of the question and therefore you will get them wrong, and this does count as a grade. Okay, so here's an example question. Write which place to use when comparing the numbers. So we know when comparing numbers, we always want to start all the way to the left. There's 2 3s, 2 8s, 2 9s, up. So now we have to look in the ones place. So they're not even asking us to compare them. They're just asking which place we would use, and our answer would be the ones place, right? If we were going to compare them, we might go like this and write the other number here. Which one would be greater? It would be 3,893. The mouth, or the opening, would eat the bigger number. A 3 is bigger than a 1. Let's do another example. Write which place to use when comparing the numbers. I have a 6, a 5, and a 1. So what place would this be? That would be my thousands place. Okay, another comparing, but now we're writing what symbol goes in between. So again, you would want to make sure you're comparing each number, decide what place value you're going to look at to do the comparing. Here's another one just like it, and another one just like it. And now we're on to a rounding question. It says round the number to the place of the underlined digit. So I'm just going to write this number a little bit bigger so that you can see it. And the 2 is underlined. So I like to take whatever my target digit is and look to the right. I have a 3. I'm going to say my little poem, 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 or less, let it rest. So this 3 is a 4 or less. That's going to tell my target digit, the number 2, what to do. So it's going to rest. It's just going to stay the same. And everything else after my target digit is going to turn into a 0, making my rounded number 200,000. And I believe that when you write in your answer, you do not need to write a comma. You could just write the zeros. Okay, but make sure you have the right amount of zeros that you're typing in. Let's try another one. If we have 271,657, and we want to round it to the place of the underlined digit, which happens to be the 2, we can look to the right. There, I'm going to say my poem, 5 or more, add 1 more. Remember, we're adding 1 more to the target digit, the number 2. So it would turn into a 3, and everything else after it would become a 0. We have some more rounding. I'm not going to do all of the problems. Okay. Here's another problem where you're selecting the correct symbol, greater than, less than, or equal to. Remember, the mouth eats the bigger number. Remember the annoying alligator song. All right, for this kind of a question, you're going to be dragging the place value that you would use to compare the numbers. So let's just do 1 or 2. Zoom in on this a little bit more. We have 5 and a 5, and then a 3 in the hundreds place and a 5 in the hundreds place. So we would use here the hundreds place to compare. So I would be taking that hundreds and dragging it here. Let's do one more. Let's do this one down here. We have a 4 in the hundreds, a 3 in the tens, up, and in the ones place, they're finally different. We have a 6 and a 5. So the ones place is where we would use to compare for that one. Which of the following names the values of the 8s in this number? Meaning this 8 is actually 8,000, right? And this 8 in the hundreds place is 800. So we would have 8,800 as our answer. In this question, we're being asked to tell the relationship between the values of the 4s in this number. So we know that when we have two of the exact same digit right next to each other, the digit to the left is going to be 10 times greater than the digit to the right. Another rounding question. They're telling you where they want you to round it, the nearest 100,000. So you are going to identify that target digit, and then you're going to look to the right and say your poem. For this problem, you're actually just going to round the number and then choose from the drop-down menu. So 9,513, round it to the nearest 1,000. You find the spot you're rounding to, look to the right, say your poem, and then it tells you what to do with the number 9. When we're writing expanded form, we want to make sure that we have lots of zeros and pluses. Word form would be spelling it out. So we would be choosing 234,991,479. It's a long number. Jada followed these rules to write a 5-digit number. And so now there's some rules, and they want you to tell what number she wrote. So by following those rules, remember your place value chart. That's going to come in handy as you do this question. Molly wrote a number that has a 4 in the hundreds place and a 3 in the thousands place. Which could be Molly's number? So you really need to make sure it has a 4 in the hundreds place and a 3 in the thousands place, and it could have anything else, anywhere else. That's what you need to make sure, and you're picking the ones, yes or no, that meet that criteria. This last question is one of those questions that I can't even fit it all on one page. Look at how big this question is. It's question 20, right? There is a part A. There is a part B. There is a part C. There's a part D and even a part E, okay? It's really important that you're answering all parts of the question, that you scroll down all the way. Each of these builds on one another, so some of the question parts are related. And you want to make sure that you take your time on this, because if you only do part A, then all of the other parts are going to be counted as wrong. All right, guys, that wraps up our review lesson for today. Now it's time to go take that place value quiz. Make sure that you take your time, okay? And when you're all done with that, you're going to go on to whatever our Google Classroom says to do. Have a great day, everyone.